Well, hello again. We're on the ground here in Albany, New York, and it is pretty damn miserable. But wanted to get back in the air with you guys. It's been a little while, and it's mainly been a little while because a variety of computer glitches and gadgets and thingamajigs here. Including, as you can see, getting track IR working here. So as I look around in the cockpit, including to that windsock, look at it. It is blowing like crazy. We can finally look around. This is X-Plane 11 Beta 6 or 8 or, no, yeah, it's 8. And it doesn't fully work with X camera and track IR. You can have one or the other, but not both. I'm going to do this flight. This is dedicated to a person who I will simply refer to by her pet name, the Quail. And, well, there's a long backstory to that, but suffice it to say, she actually in her career had found good reason to watch a lot of Looney Tunes cartoons. By the way, speaking of Looney Tunes, there is, as you can see right there, in the middle of upstate New York, a palm tree, but never you mind, right next to the de-icing vehicles there, as you can see. She will forever be known as the Quail, named after Quentin Quayle, who was a Merry Melodies character. And I, for some reason, am known to her as the Wabbit. So, Quail, this is for you. I just wanted you to see the goofy shit that I am sort of studying to get my pilot's license. So it's not a mystery to you. We're going to take a flight from here to Nantucket. I've frozen track IR so it doesn't make everybody sick here. And we've loaded up with fuel. And I'm just going to show the Quail. You guys know it by now, but you know the drill. I'm going to show the Quail step by step what we do. This is the outside temperature here. It's about 30 degrees right now. It's raining, snowing, slushing, so we're going to look out for ice, but that's something to keep in mind later. See right here, we've got full tanks of fuel. We're going to go to Nantucket for no damn good reason at all, except that it is almost totally fogged in and is going to be difficult to land at. So anyway, first thing we're going to do is we're going to prime the fuel lines. So we're going to turn on our electric fuel pumps, which are going to take fuel from the left and the right tanks and get them pressurized. So I'm going to look here and I'm going to wait. Ordinarily, I'd wait for peak fuel flow, which is about 15 gallons per hour, but because of a bug in X-Plane 11, it only registers about 8. So here we go. Up we go. And there we go, about 8, and done. If you prime too much, you'll flood the engine. You won't be able to start it. Okay, and the right side, twin-engine airplane, of course. And done. Now we turn the avionics, which are the aviation electronics, off because they can be damaged when we start them up. And a left-hand starter. Pull our throttles back. Those are right over there on the right-hand side of the screen there. Pull them back to almost closed. And we'll start number 2. And it starts up. And we'll start up number 1. And it starts up. And we'll just let it warm up for a minute or two. And now that we're done with that, we can turn track IR back on. Other thing we can do is now we can turn our avionics back on. And I'm going to start up my GPS right here. And this is from Reality XP for anybody who's just joining me for the first time here. And unfortunately, they don't have it integrated into the cockpit yet, which is too bad. So you just use it as a pop-up. So our flight plan we're going to take already populates Albany, as you can see.
System test okay.
Thank you, ma'am. we're going to go to Nantucket. Now you can see right here we are under a SIGMET, which is a meteorological warning basically for severe turbulence along the whole flight route. So we're going to go from Albany here, and we're going to get on to the Victor 146, which is an airway. And so we will put the first waypoint of the airway in, which is going to be right there. All right, so now we're going to go to Chester, which is CTR, which is a VOR. If you're new to all this, it stands for Visual Omni Ranging. Don't know why. Basically it means, well, in essence it means an all-directional radio signal that you can use to judge where you are. It's about 75 years old at this point, but it has stood the test of time. Basically lets you get on any point of the compass and know that you're flying in on that track. So we'll put that in, and then we will put in an airway from there. And with the Garmin 750 here, you can just load an airway and it knows which airways come out of that particular radio fix. So there, and we're going to take it all the way to Nantucket. Done and done. We'll load that, and you'll notice that it gives us the entire airway here and all the waypoints on it, but we can collapse it by going like this, and it just collapses, or you can expand it. You can see all the points along the way. So there we go. And in Nantucket, we're going to get the weather forecast there, and I believe the technical term for it is shitty. I would have to say, well, there's Martha's Vineyard, looks shitty there. And here the shittiness is, let's see, sorry about that, one of the hazards of track IR. Let's see, shitty here is taken to mean holy crap. Winds gusting to 40 knots, 070, broken at, oh my goodness, overcast 800 feet, yeah, 070 at 4040 knots. So we got almost gale force winds, 070, so we're going to pick a runway that will give us that. Wow. So what we do is we will put in and a waypoint which will be KACK. At the moment, I'm sure there are actually not flights going in and out of here, but there we go, Nantucket Memorial. Hope it won't be our memorial. We'll load a procedure and approach. ILS runway 6 is pretty much aligned with our wind. Wow. Transition, let's do, well, we're coming in via Martha's Vineyard, so yes, let's do that. And we'll load the approach. Yes, okay, good. Wow. All right, map. Holy free holies. All right, so we are, well, we're going to have fun today. Let's give ourselves a transponder code, doesn't matter what. Altitude, boom, okay. And we are going to be flying east. We will fly, therefore, at odd altitudes. I have no idea why, but my mnemonic is that it takes an odd man to live out east, back east, but if you want to get even, you go west. I don't know why, but that's how I remember it. But also, oddly enough, when you in Manhattan, when you travel east on, well, that doesn't work. You actually go on even streets. Anyway, all right. be that as it may, we will fly today at 11,000 feet, try and get above some of this crap. And weather in Albany is sucko. Let's see, we've got altimeter, which is 2975. That's the atmospheric pressure. And wind. All right, we can use the runway we're at, so just set 2975 on the Marshall principle, which is when you're staring it in the face, just do it, even if it's not where it should be on the checklist. Get it out of the way. All right, that is done. And so now that we've warmed up a little bit and our oil temperatures, looking down right there, are okay. Oil pressure, okay. Everything is fine. Get some lights on here. I should have turned on the beacon earlier. Turn on our panel lights. We can see what we're doing. Turn on the taxi lights. Set our autopilot. Flight director on. Nav on. We'll set an altitude of 11,000 feet. We're just going to assume we're cleared right up to it. Going to hit arm. Make sure it's armed. Hit vertical speed. In this airplane, you can only pre-program a vertical speed if the flight director is already on, or obviously if the autopilot's on, but it's not, obviously. We're going to set a, I hate when that happens. We're going to set a reasonable climb rate, which is going to be about what we would do if we were climbing on our own. And we're mostly going to hand fly this, so we'll set about 1,300 feet per minute. I'm setting a climb rate that should yield us about 120 miles an hour for the climb, so do it about that way. And sorry, I'm still a newbie at track IR, so I'm going to get this thing zoomed back out, get track IR set. We're going to look this way and make sure they're not towing the Learjet over us, and then I think set one notch of flaps. Our trim is already set. All right, let's head out that way and head out to the runway. So at this point we will have gotten our clearance, and I believe what they would have said is, you see our parking brake doesn't come off when we use the brakes. Let's just test our brakes. Uh-oh, they don't work. All right, let me fix that right now. Oh boy, hang on. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around in circles until we slow down here. This is really awkward, but apparently our brakes don't work. All right, our parking brakes are on, and while we're at it here, let me get back into idle and assign our brakes. For some reason, we've lost the connection to our rudder pedals, which is, well, it's damn inconvenient, shall we say. Okay. All right, that seems to work. Now let's see if our brakes work. They don't work especially well. All right, so we'll just taxi gingerly. I'm not sure why, but recall this is a beta, and one of the things they're working out is ground friction, and apparently we don't have any. So what we'll do is we'll just, I hear the sound that the brakes are supposed to make, but I don't actually hear any braking. This is one of the quirks of X-Plane, and that is that it has wonderful dynamics in the air, and it has got horrible dynamics on the ground. And Austin Meyer, who invented X-Plane and who is responsible for the continued maintenance of X-Plane refuses to believe that there is a problem. But as you can see, if you've ever been in a small plane, even a small plane on a really windy day, it doesn't really behave like this. I mean, we're sitting here, I'm standing on my brakes, and we're being blown down the taxiway. I'm going to try and hold short at the hold short line by using the parking brake, and I guess we just managed to just barely. So let's just set our trim. We're not going to follow a star coming out of here. I'm going to turn on the pitot heat, and quail, there's a little probe on the outside of the airplane. It's like a tube. It's used to measure airspeed, and if it ices over, you can't measure airspeed, and therefore you're screwed. So we've got a heater on it. We're going to heat that up. We're going to use windshield heat, prop heat, not use heat on our boots yet, although we probably should. Let's do that. All right, and right now I'm just going to check. We are delivering current to our props. The other thing I am going to do is get on our landing light. I'm going to keep our strobe off because we're going to be going into the clouds and the strobe will blind us if we're not careful. And I'm going to try to do a very ginger run up here, which is normally used to check the magnetos, the ignition system. Quail drives a Mazda Miata, an original one, and it is so fucking cool. All right, but what I am going to do is I'm going to exercise our props. The props can be varied in speed, so it's run off of a hydraulic system, and you need to get oil into it or it won't work. And one of them works, but the other doesn't. Well, that's interesting. There we go. Get some oil flowing into it. All right, there we are. All right, now let's take the runway here. This is, by the way, Quail and others. This is really the thing to do in weather like this is not to fly in it. There's a risk of icing. There's a risk of severe turbulence. There's a risk of getting confused and falling out of the sky. There are about 1 million different risks, and there's 1 million different reasons to just either fly commercial or not fly at all. And take the bus or something. But being stupid, we're going to take the runway. We're going to look and see, make sure nobody's coming. And again, it looks like the ground friction is not working worth a shit here. We're just going to slide and skid here and line up. Luckily, it's a very long runway, and we don't really need all of it. I'm also going to try it. This airplane is very, very bad when it comes to staying on the runway. You can see from the windsock, the wind is blowing like a son of a bitch right down it. So we're going to be off the ground in no time, thank goodness. And then we are going to make a right-hand turn. Let me just see if my heading bug works, and it does. And set up our flight director in, make sure it's in nav mode. It is, and it's enunciating over here. And, well, you can see we're sliding all over the place already, but we've got 8,000 feet to go. So what I'm going to do now is introduce the power smoothly and slowly here. And already my controls are alive, and that's because of the wind. And we're just going to keep it on the center line if we possibly can with the rudder. And now come on back and rotate on out of here. And just let it fly itself off of the pavement, because in reality that's about all we can do. The other thing we can do is get our gear up, positive rate. Up comes the landing gear. And we're going to buzz the tower because we're going to follow the flight director here. And as you can see in a second, we're going to be basically in the crap. So I'm trying to hold about 120. Round we come. I'm going to come back to our climb power, which is about 25 inches of manifold pressure. And quail, that's basically a measure of throttle position. Basically a measure of how much air the engine is gulping in, and that's a surrogate for power. Now, what I'm looking at is my ADI right there, and I'm really not looking at anything else other than my airspeed, my inside instruments. I'm not looking outside because really there's no point and it would only confuse us. So we'll bring back the power to about 25. We'll bring back the props to about 25. We'll even them out. Holding 120. Bring up the flaps. Pitch up a little bit once we gain some speed again. And retrim. Up a little bit more. I want to get through this as quickly as I can. Okay, we're at 120, so we will just trim for that. I'm watching my ADI first, and really my airspeed second. Everything else will fall into place if I get that right. But I'm looking at the other things just to cross-check to make sure that something isn't deceiving me. But as you can see out here, there's nothing outside to look at. And there's no reason to look at it. If you do, you'll likely lose situational awareness and you'll die. So I have not gotten an instrument rating yet. I'm not going to for a while, but it's good stuff to train on just in case. And you can see we've got a little tiny bit of daylight peeking out of the clouds there, but I'm trying really not to focus on that. And let me just adjust our props so that Mr. Phelps, my good friend Robert Phelps, who really flies these things for a living, won't scream at me. Rightfully so, for not syncing up my props. By the way, Quail and others, this little gizmo right here tells me whether my left and my right hand propellers are turning at the same speed. If they are, it doesn't move. If they're not, it spins in one direction or another. Okay, we're at 5,000 feet. Lost a little bit of speed there. Every 1,000 feet you climb, you lose a little bit of power, about an inch of manifold pressure, so you have to increase your throttle. So we'll creep that up so it's back to 25. Again, we're pitching for 120. In other words, Quail, I'm moving my nose up and down to maintain that speed. The speed, by the way, is right over here, and we just caught a little updraft, which is why our speed went down. So that's our airspeed, and that blue line there is really the minimum speed you want to be at in case you lose one of your two engines. Okay, up to 6, and you notice we lost 1 inch of manifold pressure. That's right there. Trimming a little bit so I don't have to work so hard with my fingers. This airplane doesn't have an indicated airspeed mode, so in other words, you cannot set the autopilot or the flight director so that you're climbing at 120 knots, and it will tell you what to do to stay there, so you have to do it yourself. Okay, 7,000 feet, and we're really getting buffeted. Those warnings about turbulence are really pretty true. Let's get up our route right there. Now you notice that magenta line right there, Quail? That means that we are, that's basically the same as the GPS in your car. Well, you don't have a GPS in your car. You've got a badass 1980s mobile. No GPS there. So we're right on the edge of the top of the clouds there. And you can see the outside air temperature is about 0 or about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're still in moisture, but we are on that magenta line, and that means we're on course. However, if you notice, we are not flying with our nose pointed towards that course. You can see it's cocked off to the right a little bit, and the reason why is that this wind here is blowing us this way. And so what we do is we fly into the wind a little bit, and what will happen is our track will even itself out. Our nose will be in to the wind, but our flight path will be the one we want. So now we're at 9,000 feet, and you can see right over there that our manifold pressure is down again. So I'm going to bring the throttles up again until they hit 25. And I'm just going to look at our temperatures here. It's the same as an engine temperature gauge on a car, really. And oil pressure right there. And I'm going to make sure everything is good, and it is. And everything else looks good. This gauge, by the way, is what's called a horizontal situation indicator, and it tells us how far deviated we are from this, while also telling us what magnetic direction we're going in, and we happen to be flying southeast right now, as we should be, and we should be right over northern Massachusetts right now as we come up on 10,000 feet, and now you can see we are above the clouds. So what I will do is I'm going to turn off some of our anti-icing measures because we're not flying through any moisture anymore. So we'll turn that off and that off. And we're following this flight director. So what I'm doing here, Quail, is I'm keeping this, which tells us which way our plane is banked and pitched, matched up with these two little yellow triangles, which tell us which way the autopilot says we should fly. So I'm basically staying matched up with that. We're close enough. Now I'm going to double check our autopilot, which is telling us in fact, I'm going to put our autopilot in. I'm going to let it fly the plane for a little bit. Realized sheepishly that we overshot our 11,000 feet and we were heading for 12, but I didn't see the 10,000 foot indicator right there. So as it levels us out in cruising altitude, I'm going to bring the power back right here to about 22 inches right there of manifold pressure, and I'm going to bring the prompt RPM back to about the same. And now, when I do that, take a look at this little gadget here. This is the synchrophaser, and you'll see as I adjust the relative speed of these two propellers, it will spin or not spin, and the aim is to get it to not spin. So, notice it turning to the left now. So I'll bring them down. Notice how it gets a lot more peaceful in here. But now you can hear the wow, wow, wow. That's the beat frequency of this propeller and that propeller, the sounds of it intermodulating. It's like when you've got two strings on a guitar and you're trying to tune it and you can hear those beats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust one of them until the synchrophaser stops moving right about, now, here we go. It's easier said than done, right about there. Come on. There we go. Pretty much stops moving, you see? Now it sounds a lot better, and I'm also going to turn on our automatic prop sync, and that should lock it in. All right, that's good to go. Now that we're on autopilot, and for some reason we are descending. All right, I'm just going to hold altitude here. Don't know why it's at 9,900 feet. We really want to be at 11, so I'm going to move this up to 11. So I was right, actually. I was reading the gauge properly, and the autopilot is somehow screwy. I'm going to set that for 11, and I'm going to set vertical speed, and we'll set it so we climb at a reasonable rate, and I'm going to arm the altitude, and up we go. About 1,000 feet per minute. That won't scare the passengers. We're going to climb up to 11,000 feet, and as we do, we're going to check our position, and you can see we are coming over coming into Connecticut right now. Ordinarily you'd file an IFR flight plan, you'd file an alternate, and you not only have an alternate in mind, but probably have two in mind on a day like this. Places you can bail out and go to. I haven't done that because, well, it's too much fun not to. But this is where we are, just crossing the Connecticut border. And let's do a descent forecast here. Let's plan our descent. As a matter of fact, before we do that, let's actually check our plate coming in and brief our arrival. And I'm just checking to make sure that this airplane is actually flying as it should be. I want to make sure it levels off right there, and you can see that's the vertical speed indicator, and you can see it is. It's also loading scenery. All right. What a mess this is. There is no place that's good. If we need to bail somewhere, we could go to Hyannis, which is fine. It's not far away, and the weather is, well, it's not horrible. The weather in Nantucket is horrible. It is deplorable. It's grotesque. All right, 116.2 is the VOR for there. We'll plug that in just so we have something. All right, so Nantucket, ILS runway 6. Let's check it out. There's our plate. All right, 200-foot minimums, or minima, if you're pedantic like me. All right, so we want to be at UFTAC at 2300. UFTAC is right there. And we can be at Martha's Vineyard. That's 23 miles away. So 23 times 3, we can be 7,000 feet. So we can be at 7,000 at Martha's Vineyard if we really want to be, and still get down in enough time to here. So, all right, 7,000 and let's say 2,300 at UFTAC. Let's plan our descent using 2,300. So we go into our utilities right here, and VCalc, target altitude 2,300, and we'll do 1,400 feet per minute. The calculation I'm basing this on is I'm assuming that I'm descending at with a ground speed of 160 knots. So we actually only need about 800 or 900 feet per minute. So we don't have to rush things. Let's do 900 feet per minute. And target waypoint will be UFTAC right there. That's our initial fix. And to give us time to slow down, we'll do it 2 miles before. All right, so there we go. So now it's going to tell us when we need to descend. Matter of fact, right now it's saying if we wanted to descend now, we could, but we would have to descend unbelievably slowly at 98 feet per minute. So that's not it. The other thing we want to do right now while we're just cruising and fat and happy is we want to look and see why we're cruising so slowly at this altitude. Well, we're actually, the air is thinner up here, so actually with our true airspeed is probably closer to 180 right here, but we can speed that up. So let's just creep up on the power and let's see what we can do. We've got plenty of fuel, so that's not an issue. Okay, so now I figure we'll cruise at about 160 indicated, I'm guessing, by the time we get going. And because the air is thinner and because less air is coming through that pitot tube, it means that it is the airspeed that's indicated here is actually less. The correction is called true airspeed, and there's a formula for it, and I don't know it. But we can look right here and cheat, and we can see that our ground speed right now is 157. And our indicated is, well, that's pretty close. So, all right, up we come. And here's where we are, here's where we're going. Martha's Vineyard is where we sort of begin the approach. And what you're looking at out the windows from XEnviro. And if I do say so myself, it looks pretty damn good. All right, so we want to get the VOR from Martha's for Nantucket in here because it'll help us home to it, and it's also part of our missed approach. So let's put it in. That's 116.2, and let's put that in nav2. So in nav2 on this GPS right here, we'll want, oh, for God's sake, well, that's a problem right here. Pressing the wrong knob. Let's make that 116 point dose. Stick that in nav2, and you'll notice that that lights up now. I don't think we can see it. It's not on the DME. I'm going to switch over to nav2 so I can see it. And we can't, but that's okay. Boom, get rid of that. All right. And even though it will automatically do it for us, let's stick in our localizer frequency, which, Quail, is the frequency of a radio beam, basically, that comes out of here. You see the runway right here? Let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, you see that this is the runway we're going to land on, and this radio frequency right here, 109.1, which I'll put in right there, it's right there, only that is the wrong identifier. Oh, that's okay, it's wrong identifier because there's another one that we're flying over that's like this, but it is a radio beam that comes radiating out of the runway that is only lined up with the runway. So you can tell at a glance when you tune it in whether you are over here, whether you're over here, or whether you're over here riding your way in. And it has another radio beam that comes up that lets you determine, here, let me zoom back out again, and you can see if this is a side view of your approach here, and you come down and this is the runway, it can tell you, are you up here and above it, are you down here and below it, or are you on this slope right here, which is 3 degrees. So it lets you at a glance check all of that out. And it all, with any luck, works. Now, as we're doing this, I'm going to do the most important thing you can do in this flight, or in any flight for that matter. And quail, shame on me. I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I got a craving. So I'm going to freeze track IR there so my head doesn't bob around while I'm doing this. I'm going to get up from the flight. I'm going to reach over here and here, so you can hear it. Well, here. What that is right there is a box of Captain Crunch. And shame on me, because I generally don't eat a lot of sweets. As a matter of fact, I haven't had this in about 3 years. I am, for some weird reason, I got this sudden craving for Captain Crunch. And I'm going to be very virtuous about it. I'm going to have some Captain Crunch, but I'm also going to put some blueberries in it because antioxidants, you know. Those of you who know me know that I am a soul of iron discipline who never ever gives into hedonistic cravings. Certainly not for Manhattans or other brown liquor drinks, and certainly not for steaks or cigars. Well, you know, what is it Oscar Wilde said? The only thing you can do for temptation is to give in to it, or something like that. Anyway, I'm going to, as we just monitoring the autopilot here, making sure we're still on course. As we monitor that, I'm going to take my blueberries because, of course, they make everything healthful when you stick them on food. You could have like a lard sandwich here, and as long as you got blueberries on it, you know, you got your antioxidants, so you're good to go. Sometimes when you need the Captain Crunch, well, let's just say there's nothing like the Captain Crunch. These times in the news business, sometimes, well, they just demand the Captain Crunch. So quail, apologies if you see me and I'm a little doughy next time. Well, this is why. My goodness. All right. This is horrific. I'm staring at a big bowl of crunchy type 2 diabetes here. And oh, they mix perfectly with blueberries. I've never had this before. I've had Captain Crunch with bananas, which work really well, but this is like the world's best junk food version of blueberry pie. As if blueberry pie weren't junk food enough. No. As you can see down here, oops, pardon me. Oh, hello. Let's fix that. This is our DME, and it shows improbably that we're 37 miles away from, well, it shows improbably that I just stuck my head outside the cockpit, but it shows that we're 37 miles away from Nantucket. Now, of course, we're not 37 miles away from Nantucket. We're 37 miles away from another VOR station with the same frequency. As you can really see, we're just coming up on KBDL, which is Bradley Airport, which means that is Hartford. And just putting a timer on the flight, keeping myself sane that way, That's a cross-check. At around this point in the flight, that's exactly where we should be. So we are navigating properly. And, you know, if you've got even a GPS and you've got waypoints you enter in and all the rest of that, a good way to make sure that you're not totally crazy is to look at each waypoint and see if you hit them about on time. The old-fashioned way of navigating relied as much on a stopwatch as anything else. And so even if you've got a GPS, now the best way to stay sane is to see if you hit that waypoint at a given time, means you're flying the right direction and about the right speed. If you are late for the waypoint, it's possible you're flying in the wrong direction, and that is a certifiable bad thing. All right, so as you can see, the autopilot is turning us a little bit eastbound, which is correct, and we're flying now towards the Cape. You can see we're indicating about 155, but we're traveling over the ground at 167, and we've got a wind that's blowing us from this side. Wow, blueberries and Captain Crunch. This is a good thing. Quail, you don't know what you're missing. Well, no, I don't want to encourage any bad habits. It's bad enough I'm doing this. Desperate times demand desperate measures. Wow. All right. So I'm scanning my instruments as we go. The other thing I should be doing is keeping our heading bugs squared up. That's just good practice. Checking our temperatures and pressures. Everything is cool. Looking out here, seeing if there's any ice on our surfaces, and it's hard to say whether X-Plane models this, but it seems to be a little bit of something. So what I'm going to do is, just for yucks, I'm going to turn on our boots. And Quail, what these are you see the, God, I hate when that happens. You see the black things right here? Those are basically rubber bladders, and what happens is they put them on vulnerable surfaces on the wing, and you turn them on, they inflate with air, and the air blows up, and then the ice breaks up and the ice falls off. They're called anti-icing boots. So these boots were meant for walking. We're going to turn them on. Pressure here goes up. That means that there's air being pumped into them. Turn on our prop anti-ice as well. That heats them up. Keeps the ice from forming on our propellers. And, well, it still is there, so I think that's just the model. And we're not flying badly, so we'll leave that alone, get rid of that, and turn that off for the moment. Wow, I can see why I only eat this about every 3 years, because it's just a little too sweet. But the blueberries is amazing, though. But it's definitely obscene. All right, so basically what's going to happen, I'll learn to keep my head still here. By the way, Gonna finish eating it before it gets soggy. The way track IR works, in case you're new to it, is you put an infrared sensor on the top of your monitor pointing at your head. Then you wear a little cap that's got 3 reflectors on it. As you move your head up and down and side to side, the reflectors move, and the infrared sensor, which is bouncing infrared off of it, reads its position and turns your head around in the game. Or in this case, the very realistic simulation of real life, but whatever you want to call it. Some people say, oh, I'm playing X-Plane, or I'm playing Prepared. And others say, it's a deadly serious simulation, and any deviations from reality are done at your peril. My view is approach it however you prefer to approach it. If you're interested in buzzing the Golden Gate Bridge, and that's what you get out of flying this, and makes you happy, then you might as well do it. And if you're working for a pilot's license and you just want something to study on, then do that. It seems a little bit odd in this world to be judging people based on what they do with a computer flight simulation, but you know, sometimes works that way. Now, what I've neglected to do and what I should do, Quail, and that is, and everyone, that is adjust my fuel-air mixture. And that's because as you climb up to altitude, the air gets thinner. That means as the engine sucks in air, the oxygen content in that air is a hell of a lot lower up here than it is down on the ground. And that means that as you climb up, and pardon me, we're loading scenery here, which is why it's a little bit funky right now. You see how movement's slowed up. As we climb up in altitude, there is lower oxygen content to the air. That's the same reason the masks drop down if you depressurize in an airplane, in an airliner. But the same holds true for engines as does for humans. And what will happen is, as you climb up, obviously, you're shooting a given amount of fuel into the engine, but as you draw in air, you're getting less oxygen. And since you want to be at an optimum ratio of oxygen to fuel, it's called the stoichiometric ratio, and I believe with gasoline it's 14 parts air to 1 part fuel, although I'm vaguely remembering that from my high school chemistry. And reading Car and Driver magazine, of course. What you want to do is, as you climb up in altitude, you want to adjust your air-fuel mixture so you're pulling more air into the engine and less fuel, because obviously there's less oxygen. So we're going to adjust the red levers over there, and we're going to look at this gauge right over here, which tells us how hot the engine is running, or the engines are running. And as you get leaner, there's less fuel to cool them, and they start running hotter. So what we want to do is we want to run them up to right about there, and just a little bit below. So watch what happens. I'm going to move those levers down there, the red ones, back, and those temperatures right there are going to climb. So back they come, and you see they're going up, and right about there. The other thing is that as you do that, you'll notice we're doing this by limiting the fuel that's flowing in, because you can't bring more air in. a fixed amount of air. So what you have to do is you have to restrict the fuel. So you see the fuel flow gauge right there in the middle of the screen, right there. We're going to notice how I make it richer and the fuel flow goes up, and I make it leaner right there, and the fuel flow goes down. I should be looking at a chart and adjusting the numbers a little bit better, but we're doing it just in a rough approximate way because we're rough approximate people. In the meantime, by the way, those things, Quail, they're flapping in the breeze there. Those are little vanes that dissipate static electricity. They're called anti-static wicks. And they basically keep static from building up on the airplane because that can zap electronics and potentially, I suppose, start a fire, but I've never seen that happen. But it's just not something you want on an airplane. Other than that, we seem to be fat and happy. I'm just going to freeze that for a second, and I'm going to do my second bowl of Captain Crunch, and then that will be it for the next 3 years, because believe it or not, from eating Captain Crunch, I know if you have, you won't believe me, but it's certainly happening to me. I'm slowly becoming sickened by it, but in a perverted sort of way, I can't resist. So, like anything else that's grotesque, I think the only way to cure myself of it will be to, well, if it were a fire, my only recourse would be to shove my arm in it about up to my elbow until I'm so frickin' burned. I will never do that again. So there we go, bowl 2 of Captain Crunch. And by the time I'm done with this, well, first of all, I'm going to be wanting a nap, but second of all, that'll be it for my Captain Crunch for 3 years. So this is all for good reason. The other thing about Captain Crunch is it lacerates your gums. So it's like a profoundly sadomasochistic experience. You're enjoying it, and before you know it, it's like you've got welts. Well, not that I know, but nonetheless. All right, so our indicated airspeed is about 160. Our ground speed is about 170. Our descent is, not only that, it's kind of stale, Captain Crunch, but leave that aside. All right, so we're 43 minutes from top of descent, but we're putting off the descent till pretty late. We could do it earlier, or we could do it in stages, but I don't want to linger in the clouds, to tell you the truth. For 2 reasons, mainly. The 2 reasons are turbulence and ice buildup. Right now we're presuming we're on oxygen up here. This is not a pressurized airplane, so we're pretending we're on oxygen. But what I don't want to do is take this supercooled airframe. Now you can see from our outside air temperature, we're about 0 Fahrenheit. I don't want to take this freezing cold hunk of metal and then drive it down through that almost freezing moist body of clouds and then kind of like wonder what's going to happen, because I know what's going to happen. We're going to build up a ton of ice. This is what's called FIKI, F-I-K-I, flight into known icing. This is, what this really is unless you absolutely have to, this is shit you really don't want to do in a small plane, but we're doing it. The plane is certificated for flight into known icing, but it's like chewing gum in church. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. I mean, it's a good idea. It's a bad idea. But For my sanity, I kind of needed to fly a little bit, so we're flying. And I finally got all this stuff running. This is a new Yoke plugin. This is some new software for track IR. This is an X-plane beta, an unsupported airplane. It still blows up quite a bit, but it's at least reasonably stable. So with any luck, we'll get through this flight without any nastiness, but we'll see. So to recap, what we're going to do is we're going to fly to Martha's Vineyard, to that VOR, to that radio fix, and then we're going to fly out this way. We're going to intercept the localizer. We're going to hook a left, and we're going to come down and land here. In 40 knot winds and overcast conditions, this should be fun. And we will, of course, because we're crazy, hand fly it as much as we can. Because to tell you the truth, I'm not entirely sure that the autopilot will be able to handle it. So we will see what happens. I'm trying to adjust the rudder trim here a little bit just so that we stay wings level. Miserable day in here in New York too. It's gale force winds, practically zero visibility, rain. Feels like Portland, Oregon in March instead of New York in January. Alright, the rudder trim's a little bit off here. You can see the ball here. Just trying to bring it back into level. Doesn't seem to work. Let me just, I'm adjusting it on my yoke, but let me just, there's our rudder trim right there. Just neutralize it here, if I can. Oh, that's bad. Oh, please. The problem with this is that it will zoom when you want it to just turn. To disable X camera again because it doesn't yet play well with Easy Dock, but oh, that is grotesque. It's like the last bits of cereal with milk, and it's just full of oh, it's like the cereal barely exists. It's just like a vehicle for to hold the sugar. I think we're loading scenery, which is why we're a little stuttery, but you get to experience through the miracle of track IR, me tilting my head back to get the last bit of that is grotesque, of cereal milk here. Wow. What I really need is I need something bitter to offset that. That is obscene. All right, now I think we're loading scenery, which is why we're still sort of stuttery, so sorry about that. Anyway, no ice on the surfaces. Let's see, our temperature here still hovering around 0. This is stuff that if I were even an experienced general aviation pilot, I would really not like flying around and over. There's really no place to go. Every place is IFR. There is no place where the weather is good enough to land visually. There's no place that isn't wet, there's no place that isn't gusty, and there's no place that isn't potentially snowy or icy. So this is just, there's really no way out, and it's kind of, when push comes to shove, a dumb way to fly. Because the best way to fly, as I understand it, and as eventually one day I hope to practice it, the best way to fly is the way my Uncle Ralph used to, and that is, well, he was a anesthesiologist, and he always, in every procedure he did, he used to tell me he had like 6 ways of getting out of it. So, you know, whenever he'd put a patient under, he said he always had about a half a dozen ways to revive them, and that, you know, you know, I'd always like to have an anesthesiologist like that. But I mean, his point was, he said, always think of your escape route. Always have it in your back pocket. And he was a pilot for close to 30 years. And never had an incident, never had a near miss, never had a scrape, never scared himself. Had an instrument rating and stayed current. Flew a nasty little plane. Flew a Mooney Super 21, which was quite a fun plane to fly, but as I understand it, is an easy plane to sort of get a little bit behind. Very slippery, you have to plan your descents really carefully. High performance, it could get you in trouble very quickly. And he flew it safely with my aunt for years. And when he died, I looked at his logbooks, and they were magnificent, and copious and correct, and just wonderful. And you know, I'm just sad I never got a chance to go flying with him, because he really knew his stuff. But I mean, you know, my friend Les, who flies commercially for a living, you know, he wouldn't go up in this. I would if he had to, but not, you know, wouldn't choose to fly and stuff like this. It's all peaceful right here, but wait till we get down into it. It's going to be, what's the aeronautical term? It's going to be a shit show. So, let's just quickly check. If we were really flying this, people would be giving us altimeter readings along the whole way, but we'll just stick with what we got. So, there in Nantucket at this moment, the weather is... Okay, the wind is straight down the runway. Oh, look, it's slowed down to a mere 37 knots. Wow. Well, there you go. I'm sorry, it's 23 gusting 37, so okay. It's not horrible, it's just terrible. An altimeter is 2946, which is tropical storm level, so that's pretty well crazy. Let's see where we are. Dumb thing to say, I should know where we are, but Been blabbing. Alright, so we're over Providence. As a matter of fact, I was going to say we are in Providence's Class Charlie airspace, but actually we're not, because where we are right now is, you can see right here, 4100 to 1700 or 4100 to surface where we are right at the very moment. So I believe we went over top of it the whole time, but we can click on it right here, and you can see in the airspace right here, airspace info, Providence, Green State, 4100, 1700. Okay, so, and this is who to contact, and these are the frequencies. There's approach, that's who you would talk to. This thing is great. You just click on a piece of airspace, tells you who owns it, who you need to call, and what the frequency is. So it's slicker than rat shit, I believe, but let's just zip through that. See if you go over here, it'll tell you the same thing right there. What's the airspace? Providence, and now it's 4100 to surface, and again it's Providence approach, and the frequency is underneath there. So it is really amazing, but we know where we are, and if we have to bail out at this point, we would drop down, we go to Providence, or we'd continue on and go to Boston. We'd go someplace with a lot of facilities, or you could go into Hanscom, which is Bedford, or KBED technically, but it's the old Hanscom Air Force Base right near Cape Cod, where I spent a couple of years growing up. Not Cape Cod, did I say Cape Cod? My God, we're going to Cape Cod. Learned how to swim on Cape Cod. Fort Devens is what I'm talking about. Matter of fact, my dad was stationed, and we were living on Fort Devens at the same time as we load some more scenery, sorry. Same time Colin Powell was stationed there, so there's a very good chance that, without knowing who he turned out to be, the little version of me and the young version of him bumped into each other. Because I was a talky little kid, so I talked to everybody. I think I got into journalism mainly just so I could talk to people. And it's weird. I do, but I'm still kind of an introvert, so I don't know how I ended up getting those two things mixed up. But now I've got Captain Crunch all throughout my teeth, and it is murder. This is, even at this, literally at this very second, I've got it in my head that I'm not going to have another bite of this stuff for another 3 years, and happily not. But it was so good while it lasted. All right, now we're looking around, we're scanning around for traffic as if we were VFR. You wouldn't do this if you were literally in clouds, but and we would technically at this point be IFR, and we'd be talking to air traffic control, and they would be separating us from traffic. But in the words of my Grandma Bella, couldn't hide. So we look, and we look if we can, because you never know who'll be coming at you, or who is vectored the wrong way, or who made a mistake. The other thing we would be doing in real life, obviously, is listening to the frequency we're on, we've been assigned. We wouldn't just be listening to it for instructions for ourselves, but what we would be doing is we'd be listening, and we'd be hearing the instructions for planes we know to be ahead or behind us, or around us, so that we would get some idea of what's coming up, and where they're turning people, and what the snags might be. So we would be doing that. In the meantime, oh look, that's our landing gear. Hey, look, we're under the plane here. Look at this. All right, well, obviously, hold on, I'm just going to poke my head back up into the plane. Please, there we go. Well, this is what happens when you slouch, I guess. You want to slouch down here and reset that. So, see, the problem with this is that you can't put limits on it. You can with this other utility called X Camera, but it doesn't work right now with the beta of X-Plane we're on. So that means you can't limit it. So you can, if you stretch in your seat like this, you can do this. Watch. Oh, hello. Where are we? Oh yeah, we just stuck our head through the roof. See, that's the roof right there. So, hang on. Or you can do this. Hey, hello. Oh, that's a handsome looking devil right there. I should really get a shave. Look at how rugged I look. That's amazing. All right, anyway, enough of that bullshit. Let's check where we are with respect to our descent. All right. First, let's make sure we're in the right place with respect to our flight plan more than anything else. Okay, Avon Cosby, next stop after Cossie, which is in 9 miles, is going to be Martha's Vineyard, which is our initial fix. And at that point, we can start booking our asses down. As a matter of fact, we can probably do it a little bit before then. But nonetheless, we've basically been flying in the same direction ever since Albany. This is a very non-involved flight plan. We don't have to turn this way and that and hither and yon and whichever way you turn. No, we just have to check our instruments and check our engines right here and make sure, okay, fuel flow's fine. This is our fuel gauge, just like in a car. And oil pressure, just like in a car. And oil temperature, just like in a car. And exhaust gas temperature, which generally you don't have in a car because you don't have to worry about it. And RPM and manifold pressure is all copacetic. So, and there's a little hole in the clouds there, and that would be a great thing to keep an eye on in case you had to land somewhere, but unfortunately that's over the ocean, so it doesn't really do us much good. But what I like about XEnviro that you don't get with SkyMax is, you notice, I know it's two-dimensional, I know it's not technically as good, whatever good means to you, as the SkyMax, but if you notice right here, whatever it is, it extends to the horizon, which is really all you want. It doesn't do any good, at least in my opinion, for the clouds to be perfect and three-dimensional and all the rest of that, but then they only go out to about here, and as you're flying around, it's like, what's that character in the Flintstone Kids? Bad Luck Schleprock. It's like Bad Luck Schleprock walked around with that cloud always around him, but it was only around him. And you know, if you can imagine flying like this, like in SkyMax, God bless him. Sorry, Cameron. Sorry, Frank. But you'd have these perfectly drawn three-dimensional clouds, yada, 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 but they would end right about here. And so you would see the end of the weather, which is really weird, because when you're really flying or driving or walking or anything, your world is defined by your horizon, and you look out to the horizon. Our eyes were designed actually for scanning the horizon. They weren't really designed for up-close shit. They were designed for looking out on the horizon to see if there's a frickin' lion coming to eat us. Because reasonably, there's no survival advantage to being able to make fine distinctions about the lion right up close, because by the time the lion is right up close, you're lion food. So, well, anyway, I digress. But this, for whatever its shortcomings are about three-dimensional or not three-dimensional, and whether this is just a drawing, and if you approach it from certain angles it'll look funny, the real fact is that if you approach it from the angle that you're flying at, which is like normal, you can see weather all the way out to the end of your screen, which is the only real thing you need to do. It's the thing that makes it look real. Okay, so here we go. It's going to get really busy from here on out. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set local altimeter, and local altimeter is 2946. So that's going to change our altitude, obviously. It's going to put us a little lower than we were. I'm just going to watch us climb up here. All right, there we go. And let's check on what it wants for our descent rate. We can choose our own just based on our calculations. It says we should start descending in 24 minutes. However, if we are if we are 13 miles from Martha's Vineyard, although that doesn't seem real, although it looks real, if we're 13 miles from Martha's Vineyard, we should probably start descending just immediately before Martha's Vineyard. So what I'm going to do is in our autopilot here, I'm just going to do this with track R off so that it doesn't bob all over the place. I'm going to set our altitude at 2300. We're over the water and there is no terrain, so we don't really have to worry about hitting anything, thank goodness. I'm going to actually, yeah, we'll set 2300, that's fine. Okay, we'll arm it, so that means it's going to stop there. And we'll just leave it at that, and when it comes time to descend, we'll start our descent. But now we've got that in the bag. So, zoom out, turn that on. Again, let's just quickly brief our approach. Okay, Martha's Vineyard, and then 23 miles across the sea. And by the way, 23 miles, you multiply that by 300 feet per mile, and that gets 6,900, so that gets us 7,000 feet. All right, so you can start descending pretty late. And that, look at that, over that little hole is a tiny piece of Cape Cod right there. It's not it's actually, well, it's technically Noshawn Island, which is right there. And this is Woods Hole right here. So, and that is Buzzards Bay right back there. Let's see if we can see it. Yeah, that's Woods Hole down there. So it's very convenient when you can just stick your head out of the cockpit. All right, so to review, we will then fly outbound on the 150 radial of Martha's Vineyard. And IRNE, let's confirm, yeah, IRNE, you see right here, is our localizer, and it is in standby already. And we'll just get it in the active, no reason not to, so we can see it early. And I think what I'm going to do is also, well, as you can see right now, we are, what, 32 miles from Nantucket, which means we're 5 miles from Martha's Vineyard. So let's start going down, and let's go down fairly gently here. Let's see, where's our ATIS? 127.5. Let's tune in our ATIS so we can 127.5 so we can get our weather. 2991 it says. Now that's interesting. It means the weather's gotten better, which is kind of too bad for us, because that would be fun. It's probably over a little clearing here. 2991. Let's just see what Sky Vector is reporting. Ah, it's improving. Damn it. It still says 2943. Although it's going to probably report what's in the sim. So we'll make it 2991 reluctantly, and we're going to accept that our altimeter may be off, which is going to be a problem, but we're going to bust our minimums anyway, so we're basically going to break the law here, Quail. We're going to not fly legally. All right, so let us now start going down. All right, zoom out here. Come on. Go down at a nice, safe, and sane 900 feet per minute. Now, it's 25 miles. And you can see this shows us the edge of our chart. Ah, and it is screwing us here on our approach. So it is sending us to the wrong place. It is sending us for the full approach here. We don't really want to do the full approach here. So let us go here and let's manually activate the approach. And let's go direct now, because it is screwing us again. Let's go direct to UFTAC. Choose direct to. And then UFTAC and activate, and here we go. Now we're going to go direct to where we want to go. It was trying to turn us around to go backwards, and we don't really want to go around backwards, and we don't really have to follow a particular portion of the procedure which would take us to the airport, out from the airport, and turn us around, because we want to get out of this as soon as we can. So we want to fly directly to here, to UFTAC, which is this intersection right there. All right, our speed is building up. That's fine. As a precaution, I'm going to turn on our ice protection. And we are now 16 miles to UFTAC, and at UFTAC we need to be at 2,300 feet. Just going to come off the power a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to increase our rate of descent just a little bit. The rule of thumb here is if you cut your airspeed in half, or your ground speed in half, and you add a 0, you basically get it. Or if you multiply times, if you divide by 5, you'll get a good rate of descent for a 3-degree down slope. So we're going 180 on the ground. You can round the numbers. You don't have to be that precise. So 180 divided by 2 is a 90, plus a 0 is 900 feet per minute, or 180 times 5 is 900. So either way gets you 900 feet per minute. Now we're going down at faster than 900 feet per minute because I want to get us down a little bit quicker, because now we're 11 miles away, and we're at 8,000 feet. Remember, we need to be at 2,300 feet. So we have to come down, well, we're at 7,003. We have to come down another 5,000 in 11 miles. And in 11 miles, you could come down at a normal rate of descent at 300 feet per mile. So that's 11 miles. You could come down 3,300 feet. So we want to come down faster. So now I'm going to bring my power back so we go over the ground slower. And I've got a rate of descent at about 1,400 feet per minute. And our ground speed is going down. So as our requirement to descend is going down, our rate of descent is staying constant, which means essentially our descent performance is improving. Now in some airplanes you don't want to back off the power too much also, because that is a consideration. You can shock cool the engine, you can overcool the engine, and obviously we don't want to do that. But I don't think that's a problem with this engine. Alright, we're at 6,000 feet, and it's 6,000 for 2,300, so we've got another 3,700 feet to go, and we've got 7 miles to do it. And we're outperforming our nominal 3-degree descent. Our 3-degree descent, we'd be going down at 800 feet per minute. We're going down at 1,300 feet per minute. The other thing is, you can see right here, there's a 37 knot wind coming at us. So this is going to be a real giant pain in the ass here. Okay. 5,000 for 23. And I'm just going to increase our rate of descent even more. 14, make it 1,500 feet per minute. And I'm going to roll off the power a bit more. And we're going to start going down like a sumbitch. In the meantime, I will turn off our prop sync, because we can't use it down low. And look, we're coming into the clouds. And we're coming up on our final approach, or our intermediate fix, which will turn us on to the localizer. And right now, I'm going to get us into heading mode here. And no, not approach mode. Let's try heading mode. There we go, and we're going to switch ourselves over. That is our localizer right there. Okay, we're 3.6 away, and we're getting there now. Now you can see how we're performing. Now we've got a bit of a drastic turn to get to our localizer, and our localizer is going to be 061, so we'll set that right now. And it would be nice if I could do that easily. Hang on. This is bad right now. It's a very inconvenient time to be doing this. Alright, 061 is right there. And, alright. We're in a little bit of uncertainty here. Coming up on 2,300, I'm going to have to roll some power back in now. Okay, there's our localizer. There we go. It's going all over the place though, and I'm not sure why. Alright, well, what we'll do is we will get into approach mode once it stabilizes. It shouldn't be doing that. You see how it's bouncing back and forth there? Alright, well, that could be a bug in X-Plane at the moment, but here we go. Okay, we've captured it. Alright, well that's good. And get into approach mode. And our airspeed is decaying, so I'll fix that in 1 second. There we go. Keep that up a little bit. Alright, let me get rid of this. I don't need it. Get our heading bug squared up. And boy, oh boy, what a mess this is. All right, so now we're waiting for the glide slope. I'm just going to roll in some power here, keep our speed up a little bit. Okay, and our distance. Okay, looks good. See, there we are on the approach plate right there. And our approach is armed. And we can come down to 1,700 feet now. Start coming down. 6 miles to run. Boy, it would be nice if this thing actually stopped moving. There we go. Okay, just waiting for the glide slope. Get reset there. Alright, everything else is okay. Still on autopilot. I don't see the glide slope, and that's a problem. Now I don't see the ground, and that's a bigger problem. And I don't like the fact that we should be lower, and we're not. Very reluctantly, I'm going to descend to our minimums here. Or I'm going to descend to the minimums for this particular segment is really what I'm going to do. The localizer is acquired, and we're on the magenta line. Bring our props forward. Maintain this rate of descent. Okay, bring out a notch of flaps. And again, I'm doing this with no glide slope guidance at all, which is very scary. But I'm following the approach plate here. It is warning I'm below the glide slope, but it is not indicating any glide slope whatsoever, so it's kind of hard to fly it. Well, we're coming up on our final approach fix, and that's probably, I'm a little bit low, and I'm probably off scale on the glide slope, but, and this is probably my mistake for misreading the chart, but we'll continue to fly the localizer here, and if worse comes to worse, we'll go around. So what is this glide slope you speak of? I think I know what I did wrong, and I think I descended one segment prematurely is what I did. But we'll work that out on the ground. In the meantime, I'm fully configured. I just adjust the props makes sense. The wind, which is 31 knots from our right, so we're going to have a little bit of an experience when we come into land here, but just flying level here. Nothing especially dramatic. There's our glide slope. Okay, now we're doing okay. Okay, our approach is armed. Now we're doing okay. Now we know what we're doing, sort of. Alright, so we'll start downhill now. Get ourselves into a 500 foot per minute descent. Wow, it's windy. tweaking my prop a little bit. Not doing very well. I shouldn't be futzing with it now. Alright, we're on the money, we're in the slot. We're just a knot or two slow here. Okay, we're good. Wow, look at how canted into the wind we are. Look at the GPS there. I'm feeling it pull. I've got quite a bit of right rudder in right now without even thinking about it. I'm just flying the flight director here. Anyway, Quail, I'm keeping my orange triangle there superimposed with the other two yellow ones, basically. And I'm cross-checking with the instrument right below it. You see the little triangular dots there? All right, so we should be about 3 miles away. At some point we should be making out little bits and pieces of the runway, maybe. Okay, 500 feet. Wow, is it windy. All right, we're right about minimums right now, but we're cheerfully going to go right through them. At some point, there's the airport. Okay, good. And there go the runway lights. Well, that was pleasant. Now look at this. Look at how pointed into the wind we are. Jeepers. Wow. Okay, here we go. Get a wing down into this. And there we are. Okay, and come to a stop and welcome to Nantucket, where the local time is, oh, windy 30 and our brakes do not work well. All right, let's see if we can turn off on this one. We're just, this wind is just blowing us like crazy here. As you can see, I don't think we're going to be able to stop. I'm leaning on the brakes right now, and all right, well, I jammed on the parking brakes, but since I know this is what you all want to see, we'll do the instant replay here. Holy crap, look at that. Nice looking airport. All right. All right, that's about as far out as I can go because I don't like that the runway lights disappeared there and the approach lights disappeared, but anyway. All right, so there we are. I don't know why there are these random street lights there, but okay. This is highly insane. That's a 37 knot wind, by the way. I think they still have some fine-tuning to do when it comes to the ground handling, because that's murder. Good looking plane.
500.
Now, it may start barking like don't sink or something. That just happens during the replay. That's not because we weren't amazing. All right, so there's the shot. There we go. This is a shot from the tower. There we go. That's what we're looking for. All right. Look at him holding it steady there, our hero. Oh, I'm queasy from that Captain Crunch. I'm not doing that again. Ugh. It's like I need some, like, pickled herring or something, just a kimchi to just kind of get the sweetness out of my mouth. So there's the turbulence. You can see us fighting with the rudder there. Look at that. So I'm trying to get a wing down into it so that I don't put too much stress on the landing gear. And look at that. Well, that technically is the way to do it. I can't say I kept the center line too straight, but here, let's do the world famous naturally Hawaii 5-0 shot. Let's see. God, look at that. Zigzagging all over the place. All right, here we go. You know you like it. Jeepers. All right, there we are. So you can see our nose is now drastically pointed off to the left to counteract the wind. And you can see it's just basically blowing us every which way. You can see right there. So there, now we're crabbed into the wind now, and then I'm going to turn the nose to the left right there, and I'm going to bring that right wing down. And we land with the right wing down into that wind like that. And look at the windsock over there blowing like a mofo. That's a pretty rhymy-dimey day. Holy crap. All right, well, anyway, on that note, with us caterwauling all over the place there, look at that. Let me leave you with that. And Quail, I hope that gives you some idea of the dumbass stuff that I do. And Captain Crunch, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to abandon ship because that is just revolting. Can't believe I did that. And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.